Hi everyone, my name is Rhonda Robson and welcome to my acrylic pouring fluid art channel. I am a fluid artist in the middle of the United States of America, and I am coming to you today and many other videos that I'm going to be doing, and I want to do the basics of what fluid art looks like. Today's video is completely different from the normal videos I do, and the reason why it's different is because I saw on Facebook somebody had mentioned that there wasn't very many videos about how to get started. There's a lot of videos on how to do different techniques and how they create the fluid art, but there's not a lot of actually how to 101, how to get started in pouring paints. So today we're going to talk about that. So when you're trying to just get started, it's kind of overwhelming. When you get on YouTube, there's so many great artists out there. There's so many great different techniques. I just don't know where to even start or where to begin. So today I want to talk about what is acrylic pouring, or what is pouring paints or acrylic fluid art. It is actually taking paint and making it thinner so that you can pour it on a canvas or flat surface or even a vase. And it makes a marble effect, but there's other effects that it makes too as well. So it just depends on the type of technique that you use. So the first thing I want to talk about is the different supplies that you need in order to do fluid art. Okay, now don't get overwhelmed with this. I'll put a list down below, and each one I'm going to talk specifically about. So first, you need something to drink, because when you're pouring, you get thirsty. And I usually have tea. In the evening times, I might have a glass of wine or a mimosa, but most of the time you're going to see me drinking tea or water. That's just something that I like. But, you know, I would definitely have that. You're wanting to have some type of a surface, a flat surface. And with acrylic pouring, you need it to be level. So you need to understand that wherever surface that you use, it needs to be level. So you find a space, and once you've figured out what that space is, understand that it's going to get messy, okay? Because we're painting. I mean, look at my look at my apron. So it is pouring, and it's spraying, and it's abstract art. So you're going to want that space to make sure that it is conducive to be able to get a little messy. Now, the great thing with acrylics is that it's cleanable, right? You can be able to clean pretty much any surface that you have, other than sometimes when you get acrylic paints on clothes, it doesn't. So I would recommend having some type of protection, or have specific clothes that you're going to use every time you paint. I've got 4 or 5 different outfits that I use, that I paint with: long sleeve, short sleeve, depending on the season. Right now it just happens to be summer, so I'm in my short sleeve stuff. So in order to do acrylic pouring, you need paint, right? And there's so many different kinds of paint out there. So what I would recommend is for you to look for some sales. Go to your local Hobby Lobby or Michael's or craft store in order to get your paints. Okay, start with actual paints, actual acrylic paints from there. Then you can move into house paints and stuff like that later on, once you get your basics down, and you can experiment then. But let's start so that you can have some success first. I really want you to get some decent paints. Okay, so I've got a number of different paints here, and I want to kind of go through just some of them. These are all ones that I use on a regular basis. There are some that I have found that I don't like as well as others, and so I no longer use those. So I'm just going to tell you which ones work well for me. So when I started, I went to Hobby Lobby and Michael's, and the 3 name brands that are there are Master's Touch. Okay, this is also a Master's Touch here. This just happens to be a Master's Touch Gold, so it's a metallic. This is a regular. And then these ones were at Hobby Lobby, and then this Liquitex Basics and Artist Loft were both at Michael's. So depending on where you go, You can pick these up sometimes, buy one, get one at half price, buy one, get one free. So check out your sales when you first get started. All right, so those are a few that I have used. There is also something when you're first starting, not to worry about creating mixing and ratios and stuff like that. There is this pouring paints by Artist Loft, and I have used these quite a bit and I really like them. In fact, that one is an Artist Loft and this one right here is an Artist Loft pouring medium or pouring paints. So Artist Loft just took it and just made some great paints that all you gotta do is just pour on. The only disadvantage with this is that it's a thicker paint, and so only certain types of pouring techniques work well with this. So, but this is a great way to start. Just grab a couple of these and then you can get started right away and you don't need to worry about mediums. Then there is also Deco Art. I love Deco Art's metallics, and so I utilize them quite a bit. The other two that I have just started really using is Amsterdam, and especially in my Dutch pours, I love Amsterdam. And then Arteza. And Arteza, they come in bottles like this, but they also come in these, which is easier to squeeze the paint out of. So as you can see, there's lots of different paints, lots of different colors that you can choose from. But what I would do is I would just go find about 5 different paints, different colors, some colors that you like. Find 3 colors that you feel go really well together, a white and a black. You need some type of a contrast with it. So these are just a few different types of paints that I have used, and all of them work really well. All right, well, enough talk about paints. So in order for you to have paints that flow or become fluid, you need to have some type of a medium. So the mediums that are out there, there's a lot of them. And so let's kind of go through some of the ones that I have used and what I typically use, okay? The first one is, and I live in the United States, so this is the United States Floetrol. You can pick this up at any Home Depot or Lowe's. You can get it online too. Be careful on Amazon. Sometimes the people who actually put Floetrol on Amazon will jack up the prices because it's not Amazon who does it, it's the people you're purchasing it from, right? Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, those type of places will have Floetrol. And it's a great, inexpensive product. It's about $15 for this entire gallon, okay? I use Floetrol. There's a number of times that I use just regular water, and this water is actually filtered water, not distilled, but filtered water. And I just put it in an empty Floetrol jug, so that way I know that this is the water that I need to use. So I will use water. Another thing that I end up using is this product called GAC 800. It's from Golden. And this is expensive stuff, so I use very little of it. So you don't need this to get started. These two work really well, all right? I'm just showing you other types of mediums as well. Sometimes artists find out that their paints crack or that maybe they put too much water in it. The Gold GAC 800 really helps bind it together, and I very rarely have cracking when I utilize this product, but I don't need a lot of it. You just need a little bit. Another product that works really well is glue, and this one just happens to be one that I got from Home Depot, I think, someplace, Home Depot or Menards. And I have also used Glue All. You just want to make sure that it is not Elmer's glue. You can use that, it just tends to yellow. But this does not, this white glue, and also the Glue All does not yellow either. But this is a nice, inexpensive medium that you can use. And then I have 2 others here. Whoops. This is a Liquitex Gloss Medium Varnish. And this actually can be utilized as a medium and or varnish. And I will utilize this when I'm doing like projects that are really large, as well as my commission pieces. This is very expensive, and so I don't use this very often. All right, and then the last one I have utilized the Deco Art pouring medium as well. And it's very similar to the Liquitex medium. That's very similar to the GAC as well. Less expensive than the GAC. So anyway, these are different types of mediums that you can use. So depending on what technique you're actually doing will determine sometimes which medium that you use. Let me put these away and let's talk about canvases. So now that you've got your paints, you've got your medium, you're going to mix your paints, and I'll show you how to do that in a couple other videos. Now you need something to put it on, right? And you can use any type of surface. Any flat surface works really well. And I'm not saying that that only has to be flat, because I have actually done vases. I've seen other artists do vases, even like Christmas bulbs. I've seen that. So really cool effects with the flow of the pouring paints. The two canvases that I have over here, I just want to talk about the differences between them. And it is price. So what I would recommend you doing is go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever craft store or wherever you can get canvases at, and get the bulk, like buy 10 in a bulk. And buy the level number 1 just to get started. The level number 1 usually has, and I'll bring this over to you so you can see it. It's stapled right here on the back. Do you see that? And so it is not wrapped around, it is just stapled. And this one just happens to have been in my back area for quite a while, and see how the canvas is kind of warped. So you've got to be really careful on these type of canvases. And when you store them, you don't want to store anything with a puncture, like a point next to it. See how my finger's putting a point right there? It will actually indent your canvas. So be careful about that when you're storing your canvases. So this is not a gallery wrapped canvas, but it's a great way and a place to start. This one right here is a gallery wrapped canvas. The canvas is wrapped up underneath here, and you don't see any staples at all. So that works out really well for when you're trying to do projects that you want to last for a long time on your walls. Now you can get the gallery wrapped in a thinner. This is a gallery canvas. This is the thickness of it, but you can get the wrapped like this in a thinner canvas as well. Artist Loft, Master's Touch, all have that thinner canvas as well. So this happens to be Artist Loft level number 3. There's a level number 2 and a level number 1. I actually have a video about the different canvases, so I'll link that right here for you. All right, well, let's put the canvases away and let's talk about preparing your canvases, okay? All right. So a lot of people prepare the backs of their canvases. I'm going to be really honest with you. There's very few times that I do, but you can prepare the back to make it a little bit more professional by taking some painter's tape. And I typically, now I'm not using this blue tape anymore, painter's tape. I'm actually using Frog, which is green. But you just take your tape and you put it where you don't want the paint, right? So if you don't want it on that wood area, you take that and you put that there, because you will, when you go to tilt your canvas or when you go to move your canvas, you will end up putting fingerprints or smudging something on the back side. So let me give you an example of that. Okay, so I've got 2 canvases here. One that has smudges and fingerprints on the back. I mean, sometimes this is actually mild compared to sometimes my canvases. I have fingerprints all over the back here too as well. But you can kind of see where I was holding it here and I was tilting it or moving it. And you can see where the paint kind of went there as well. Then if you do tape it, it looks more like this. where you just have the brush strokes of where the paint was at. It's really up to you if you want to prepare the back of your canvas or not. 98% of the time I don't. I think it's actually kind of fun to see the texture behind there, and people know then that it is homemade and that it's an original. The other thing that I do to prepare my canvases is I use push pins or devices to lift my canvas off the surface. That way the paint can drip down the sides of it. So for the longest time, I used teeny tiny push pins like these little teeny tiny ones. Now I use these gigantic ones, and I actually really like the gigantic ones. But if you don't want to spend the money on these, which they're not that expensive, but they're a lot more expensive than these smaller ones, then you can use the small ones. So I've used these too. I use these for my bigger projects, but now that I found these jumbo ones, I'm using them a lot more. It's really just up to you and what you have for money, because I'm going to tell you, it costs some money to get started with this. So keep it minimal. If you've got cups, just let it drip down cups. That way you can just keep reusing those. It's whatever you need to do. So I keep all my stuff in containers and I reutilize them over and over and over again. So now that you've got your canvas, your paint, your medium, all figured out what you're going to do and how you're going to do that, the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to paint. And so you need to prepare your area. So I would just make sure that you have some type of plastic sheet or something underneath your painting that you can reutilize every time. Or a lot of artists do use puppy pads because it absorbs the paint. And I reutilize these over and over and over again. So you don't have to necessarily only use them one time. The one thing you're going to find out about fluid art is that there's a lot of waste. So the less waste that you can do, the better for the environment. So I reutilize these over and over again. I just put them in the back and let them dry just like my canvases. I also utilize gloves, but you don't have to. Acrylic paint comes off your hands very easily, so you don't have to use gloves. And then the other thing that you will need, once you have your paint, your medium, your canvas, your area all prepped, now you need to create your paint, your fluid paint, your pouring paint. So the things that I use are cups, and there's all different sizes of cups. And so depending on how large of a project you're doing will determine how much paint you need and what size of cup that you use. So if I'm just going to make a little bit of paint for an accent, then I'll just use a small cup because there's no sense wasting a larger one. And so once you have your cups and you have your paint, you're going to need something to mix it with. And I utilize just these wood sticks. And I've learned over the years that I have a preferred stick now. I used to use these medium sticks, and I reuse these all the time. So you can kind of see on this one, there's paint on there. I'll let them dry, and then I keep reusing until they get so much paint on there, then I throw them away. So I use the medium sticks, and then sometimes for my smaller projects, I use my smaller ones. But this doesn't stir as well, so it depends on my project, but I do have the small ones. But I'm finding that I'm really liking these bigger ones. There's more surface to stir. I can actually see the consistency better off of my stick, so I tend to use these bigger ones. But again, you can reutilize them. Now you have your paints. Now you have your devices that you're going to do to actually create the fluid acrylic paint. And so now it's what design do you want to do? And that's probably the toughest to get started. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you in this video some of the ones that I've done so you can get an idea of, yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for. So then you can go, okay, I know I want to do that type of technique. And I would just start very simple and do one or two, and don't get too frustrated, because sometimes fluid artists do get frustrated when they first start out. Don't get too frustrated, just keep doing it. And guess what? If you don't like it, you can scrape the paint off, reuse the paint at a later date, and you can mix it up and make a different color paint, right? I call it LOP, leftover paint. Anyway, but you could just scrape it off or let it dry and then just paint over top of it again. I do that all the time. All the time. Even my cracked paintings I reutilize, because I'm frugal and I really want to make sure that I am getting the best bang for my buck. So I reuse almost every canvas that I've messed up on, if you will. Happy mistakes, right? Let me put my sticks and my cups away off to the side, and let me just talk about a few tools that help you to get started. When I got started, one of the things that I made sure I bought, and I think it's important for you to consider, is a paintbrush. And depending on what kind of paintbrush that you get or how thick of a paintbrush, you might want to consider just getting one nicer one. The cheaper ones don't move the paint like the nicer ones do. So just consider maybe spending just a little bit more on a nice paintbrush, because you can utilize this over and over again, wash them off. You can kind of see I need to rewash my stick area here a little bit better the next time I wash it, but you can reutilize these. The other two things that I went ahead and I actually have this one, but purchased, is just one tool like this. What's nice about this is that if you get something in your painting, you can dig it out, and you can also use it as a swiping tool, and we'll talk about swiping tools later. And then this just happens to be a cake icing apparatus tool, so I utilize it in my paintings. And really, when I first got started, these three were really the ones that I used a lot. So consider maybe getting these three, or don't, and add on as you go, right? So I know that getting started is expensive, so you don't have to get all this stuff at once. Just remember that. One thing that I would recommend you getting, or I'm sure you have around the house and utilizing, is a level. And when I mean fluid art needs to be level, I'm very serious, because I've had so many paintings that looked so awesome when I left them, and then the next day when I came back to look at them, they had all moved and they looked like a big mess because the canvas wasn't level. So I would highly recommend you getting or utilizing your level that's in your house. I have a small one and I have a large one. Now, when I first got started, I had a teeny tiny one, and I used it. It worked really well for a while, but then I invested in two different ones, a smaller one, this one right here for my smaller canvases, and then a really large one for my larger canvases. So that's the only things that you have to have. So let's go through that list one more time, and I have it right here on my computer, so I want to make sure that you hear the basics of what you need. The first thing you need is you need a surface, right? It can be a canvas, it can be wood, it can be tile. It can even be a vase or, like I said, a glass bulb that you put on your Christmas tree. Every surface that is out there, though, has a different prep. So you're going to want to research how to prep that surface, if it's wood versus a canvas, in order to do acrylic pouring on it. Okay? Gesso is a product that actually helps prepare a lot of surfaces, and it's not something that you absolutely have to have, because I don't use it because my canvases are already primed. So I don't need that. But maybe if you're using wood or some of the other canvases that are not primed, you're going to want to make sure you do some type of primer, and gesso is a great product for that. Then you need some type of a soft body acrylic paint. And like we talked about, we've got Master's Touch, Amsterdam, we've got Artist Loft, we've got Liquitex, Deco Art, and Arteza, all of those great paints, but it has to be a soft body paint, okay? And it's acrylic. We don't use inks in this type of pouring. There's other pouring that uses inks, and that's not what I'm talking about today. We're just talking about acrylic pouring. So you're going to want soft body acrylic paints. Then you're going to need some type of medium to take that soft body paint and make it fluid. So that could be utilizing Floetrol, it could be water, it could be GAC 800, it could be Liquitex pouring medium, it could be Deco Art pouring medium. There's a lot of that. Gluol and water also as a pouring medium. So remember, you need something to help reduce the thickness of the paint to the consistency that you want. And each type of technique requires a certain type of consistency, and we'll talk about that too as well in these series of videos. One thing I didn't mention is something that you don't have to have, but a lot of artists like to utilize, is silicone. It creates what we call cells. And so there's a number of different silicones out there. The one that's worked really well for me is this Spot On treadmill silicone, but I've heard people have used coconut oil from, I think it's for their hair. They've used that. I've used this Cell Magic, and I've also used this Artist Loft. My favorite really is the treadmill silicone. That works about the best as for what I want. The next thing is you need a device that you're going to stir in the paint and the medium together to make it fluid. So you can use any type of cup, right? Any type of beverage cup. I just happen to use plastic cups. You can use silicone cups. You can use reusable plastic cups. It's really up to you on what it is that you want to use, okay? Different sizes out there, different strengths. The great thing about the ones that I use is I already know how many ounces are in each cup, and the ribs also help tell me how many ounces as well. So that's why I like using those. You're going to want some type of a stir stick, some type of an apparatus to stir. You can use silicone ones. I just happen to use wood sticks, so it's really up to you on whatever product you would like to use. After you're finished with your painting, you're going to want to protect it. So I recommend varnishing it. There's multiple different varnishes out there, and you need to be careful, because the first time I varnished with a typical varnish that you would use on wood, and it yellowed and it ruined the paintings, and I was so sad. But it was a good lesson to learn. So learn from me. Don't use just any type of varnish, okay? So the varnishes that I have used are this Deco Art Clear Top Coat. It's decent. I like it. I've also used Golden. I've used the matte with both Liquitex and Golden. And I've used Liquitex Gloss as well. This is just a small bottle of what I've used. But what I typically use, to be really honest with you, is I use a spray. And then I take the spray, I spray it, and I use a sponge and I wipe it. Because sometimes the spray also leaves like little bubbles if you're not careful with how you spray it. So I actually take and I use like one of those sponges and I go across it. So I recommend you protecting your art once you have something that you really love and you don't want it to fade, because it will fade. That happened to me as well. I thought, oh, it's not going to fade. It does. It fades. Acrylic paints will fade. So make sure you're protecting your art as well with some type of varnish. But this is like after you kind of get started, right? And you actually figure out and have something that you really want to varnish and keep. So this isn't something you have to go out and buy right away. And then lastly, one of the things that I have utilized when I'm done painting, sometimes you have excess paint and you don't have time for another painting, you don't have another canvas, whatever the reason why you have this excess paint, you need to save it. So sometimes if I'm going to use it the next day, I'll just put a piece of plastic saran wrap over top of it, over top of the cup. So I'll just take the cup and I'll put that over top of here. I've even taken my cups and inverted them like this to make sure that the air doesn't dry out the paint. But that's only if you're going to use it within the day or so. If you aren't going to use it for a while, you can utilize bottles. Now you can go pay for those squeeze bottles, or you can utilize what you have around the house. So I'm going to quick grab them over here. Here is a squeeze bottle. I was able to purchase them, I don't know, a year and a half into me doing fluid art, and I do utilize the squeeze bottles, but not as much as you would think I do, because I have to use the exact same paint and then I have to do the exact same medium, all that in here. And I use so many different types of medium and so many different colors of paint that I only use the squeeze bottles for the paints I'm going to use on a regular basis. I utilize my excess tea bottles. I drink a lot of tea, and so I just pour it in here and then I write on it what it is, what color it is, and what medium I used, and then if I use silicone or other types of devices inside the actual pouring. So for example, as you can see right here, I have this one. This one happens to be permanent red violet. It's Amsterdam. It's 3 parts paint to 2 part water. So it works great. So just use whatever you have around the house, whatever works. Don't go out and spend a lot of money getting different types of squeeze bottles, because honestly, I have all of these squeeze bottles back here and I still don't have enough of them for all the paint that I use. So I use these. All right. Well, thanks for joining me today. I know this has been a lot of information, a lot of good information, but next I'm going to start talking about the techniques. All right, well, thanks for joining me, and if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell. Thanks again, and have a great day. Bye for now. Bye.
Thanks for watching, and if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so that way you can get notified when I have a new video up. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.